Well, welcome back. We're going to do Lies and Logic episode 3. And we're introducing hopefully, maybe he'll sit back with us another time, but right now he's sitting in for Coco, and we are quickly cutting back to him and asking him again what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a car salesman now, and I'm a recently released veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces as a weapons engineer.
And how was that? I mean, that's a really fascinating place to start.
That is a loaded question.
Yeah, working for the American or the Canadian
no
government.
pun intended.
Yeah, good one. Yeah, no pun intended. Loaded question. Well, I had my sights set on tactical operations, so that was the weapons engineer route was just a way to get in, a way to get my time in, a way to get a trade, and then go get some bad guys.
Nice. Well, that's cool. What got you into car sales?
Car sales?
Probably that's good easy money when you do well at it.
It's such a simple thing. It's basically that. Got a buddy in it who's like, hey man, I'm making lots of money, and he's a good, honest guy who doesn't screw people around, doesn't rip anybody off. I'm like, hey, if you're doing that and you're as honest as you are and you're making good money, that means, other people can too. You don't have to be a greaseball. So now I'm there and I'm doing the same thing he is, and I couldn't be happier.
And do you find the state of our Canadian economy having any effect on car sales at the moment?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, interest rates are through the roof. The price is twice as what it should be if it's pre-owned.
Of course.
We have a pre-owned vehicle. It's only 3 years old. It costs more than a new because the new is a year away. It's it hurts, man. When we're trading in vehicles, we're paying retail like for a new, and it's a 4-year-old. And then when we know we're selling it for $5,000 more than we paid, of course, because how are you gonna make money selling a $60,000 car and not make $5,000? And it hurts my heart, man. Yeah. It's brutal. I want to get a new vehicle. I want to switch mine out. I can't pay twice what it's really worth on a standard market. Like, ugh.
And I mean, we were talking earlier in the back about how our government has essentially been corrupted and overcome by corporations.
Oh yeah.
And so one of the things I wanted to really get into tonight was cancer. And
like how the government's cancer? Or?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's definitely, an element of, the theory around cancer. But I think we've all, for the most part, been affected by it in some regard, whether it's a family member.
God, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my father passed away in 2005 from colon cancer. I've had on his side of the family multiple, and his, that side of the family is First Nation. Native. So a lot of them have, dealt with obesity and different other, addictions that obviously expedited that cancer process. But my mom was diagnosed back in 2015. And that was one of the first things that really kind of sparked this dive into the understanding of how it works. Because to me, when you think about 50% of the population, which is an actual Canadian statistic, 50% of the population of Canada is expected to be diagnosed with cancer. And in that 50%, 25% are expected to die, estimated to die. Yeah. So that's 1/8 of the population estimated to die from a disease that they know for certain within most research communities that sugar, glucose, is the prime component as to what feeds cancer. Now, what really sparked my interest was back in 2015, my mom actually sent me a video of the ketogenic diet. Just something, what do you think about this?
I actually do keto.
Oh, do you? Okay, well then
right now.
you're going to be fascinated with this. Okay.
Yeah, no prostate cancer for me. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. And so when I started researching into keto, as a guy who works out all the time, figuring out how to burn fat seemed like a real cool idea. And I wasn't thinking about cancer in any respect at that point. But the idea of having an 8-pack was like, whoa, let's look into this.
Hell yeah.
And so the more I figured out, I mean, it's crazy to think that back in before I found this information, I was completely illiterate to the concept of how our body metabolizes energy and what energy sources there were. I didn't realize there was really only 3 sources of energy that our body can actually metabolize: fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. You think like, oh, it's got to be way more to it than that. but there really isn't. It really isn't much more to that than that. And so I started cutting out certain carbohydrates from my diet, primarily breads. I still couldn't seem to cut out rices. At that point, I still didn't believe, or quite understand all the details behind keto. And I eventually got some dogs. A buddy of mine pointed me down the raw food path. And then I started looking into the health benefits for dogs that are on raw food diets. And it pointed out that dogs who are on the raw food diet typically don't get cancer. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, that's interesting. Why would they not get cancer if they only eat raw meat? And obviously, the one component in that equation from kibble is carbohydrates. Yeah. You stuff tons of carbohydrates into our domesticated animals' foods and they start developing cancer. Yeah. And so I kept looking further and further and further, and it just started to seem so painfully obvious when you go back far enough how energy works. So you go back far enough and you start to realize that energy on its own is everything. So if human beings were existing on the planet in balance with our surroundings up until a certain point when we hit our first billion people, which was estimated, I think, like 1860 or something like that, in the midst of the Industrial Revolution, which was a cause of discovering coal and oil. As soon as we discovered coal and oil, we were no longer dependent on the sun for energy. So no longer did we rely on this 24-hour cycle, which gave us the ability to create more fuel, more food. We grew fields of wheat, fields of grain, fields of all these different carbohydrates.
We used to be very malnourished back in the day.
Exactly.
Which people died from that, or related diseases, caused from
viruses.
Viruses just kill you if you don't have any food, you don't have any vitamins in you.
I genuinely believe in the concept of balance in every capacity of our lives, right? I mean, when you look at
100%.
Societies and when you look at Inuit cultures and indigenous cultures, they thrived off of balance with their surroundings. They would, feed off of natural foods. There wasn't an excess of carbohydrates in any kind of indigenous diets. And now that we've got this system where we've got tons of food, tons of everything, of course, our population has been spiking the same way that cancer cells spike in our system when we introduce them to a condensed fuel source, the same way discovering coal and oil introduced a fuel source that would give us the ability to grow fuel in abundance.
Yeah, planet cancer.
Exactly. We are cancer. We are cancer.
It's like see our planet from space. It looks like it's covered in cancer.
We are cancer. There's a doctor that I want to reference, Dr. Thomas Seyfried, who suggests that cancer is it's not a genetic disease. The genetic disease that they speak of happens downstream. The reality is that it's a metabolic disease that's affected or proliferated by the consumption of glucose, and the mitochondria go through a oxidative phosphorylation process, which is basically just breaking down fuel sources. And it requires each cell requires, I think, 95% oxygen. So when the mitochondria stops operating efficiently, instead of oxygen, the cell will start to ferment using glucose as that fermentation element. And then that creates lactic acid, which then allows the cell to mutate into a cancer cell. And so most doctors in modern medicine today, they're always trying to solve cancer downstream. They're trying to figure out how to regulate the mutation within the cell through pharmaceuticals. And
there's no money in being healthy. Come on.
Exactly. Right. And so this doctor.
Why would you want people to exercise, eat healthy, get a little bit of sun, and not get cancer? Come on.
Because we live in a society.
Trillions of dollars treating
why
this.
Why do you want to cure people? Why do you want to cure them? You just want to.
Fuck no, absolutely not.
Keep them going. Yeah, just keep them going just enough where they have to rely on your product, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the root of the whole problem with the medical system. How are you ever going to have a medical system that works if the whole incentive is profit?
Well, and this is what Thomas Seyfried says, the problem with our system right now is most people, when diagnosed, don't have this information about what he's talking about. So when they go to their doctor says, I don't know anything about this stuff. And they recommend, all these different types of treatment that are very detrimental to the rest of the body, radiation and chemotherapy. Absolutely, chemotherapy and radiation can work for people, but realistically what it's doing is destroying all the cells surrounding the tumor in hopes that you get the cancer cells as well. When if you were to just restrict the glucose, the cell would eventually start to regulate itself. And then, of course, he goes into even further detail with fasting and how being in a fasted state creates autophagy. Autophagy is what cleans these cells out, gets the mitochondria.
Little uptake in autophagy and apoptosis.
Exactly. And getting your mitochondria functioning properly, fasting is one of the most efficient ways to do that. And it's just crazy to me and really, really sad when you realize how many people would still be here if they understood how to prevent these things from happening rather than, just kind of freestyling through life, consuming, and then getting diagnosed with something that, the only answer that the doctors have is more destroying or more, destruction to your cells.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably heard this before, but I don't know if it's a saying or it's just it's a reality, but if you live long enough, everybody gets cancer. But going back to being a metabolic disease, that's kind of the big thing. And you see that in all of society. You see COVID, biggest risk factor, obesity. Death, biggest risk factor, all-cause mortality, obesity.
Well, plus, hey, I like a cheeseburger as much as the next guy. And don't get me wrong, I do go to fucking McDonald's sometimes.
Yeah, in balance.
Yeah, in balance, yeah. But it's so easy. But you know what? I'll get the fucking double quarter pound. Sorry. I'll get the double quarter pound. I will supersize. I'll get the massive, sugar-filled drink, right? And that's doing nothing for you. Like, people got used to eating in excess, right? And when you if you go for dinner somewhere and I always see people, complain online, oh, don't go to this restaurant, their portions are terrible. I'm like, are their portions terrible?
Or are you just eating too much?
Or are you just used to stuffing your face until you cannot breathe?
They're just looking out. They're looking out.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with having a big greasy burger here and there, but that's the whole thing with balance, right? A lot of people have turned from eating for necessity to eating for pleasure. Definitely. And you can eat for pleasure once in a while. I mean, you want to be happy, right? You don't want to restrict yourself so you're miserable.
Yeah, my Sundays are so happy.
Yeah, your Sundays. Yeah, exactly. You create that balance. Like, I mean, I had a little bit of a binge last night on Halloween candy, but I have a keto diet. Most of the time I have absolutely no sugar at all, and I run off, primarily ketones. And as you can see, looking at me, I'm super lean. Right. And this is by choice because I choose not to follow my instincts. My instincts say, eat everything in sight. My instincts say, you're starving, man. Eat that cheeseburger, eat that donut. And at work, they always bring donuts and muffins in. You know how hard that is, staring at that shit? Like,
they say that our evolutionary reaction is to gorge on carbohydrates because of the fact that
we had no calories back then.
Yeah, they
had to be primed.
They weren't readily available.
It's basically carbohydrates.
It's a maladaptive.
Depending on what they are, they're basically a filler, just to kind of fill you up.
Oh, other like in dog food.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this research actually goes all the way back.
Protein is
right now. Oh man! But this research actually goes all the way back to the 50s with a doctor named Otto Warburg. He was a German soldier that was actually pulled out of military service by recommendation of Albert Einstein, who was a friend of his. And Otto Warburg,
that's a good friend.
Yeah. And this is why I think his research probably wasn't buried, was because of his connection to some very important people. Because he established that cancer, back in the 50s, established that cancer was a metabolic disease and that glucose and the fermentation process of glucose was what was causing the proliferation of cancer cells. And the one thing he missed that Dr. Seyfried actually has, clarified and figured out was that a lot of cancers can still survive through the fermentation of glutamine, which is a very necessary amino acid that our bodies require. And so I think what he essentially is theorizing is that, or based on some of the research and data, which, I'll attach somewhere in the description and all that kind of stuff for this particular guy, because he's fascinating. But they discovered that the proliferation or the fermentation process of this amino acid was what was making a lot of cancers, primarily, I think he was saying, brain cancers, they can utilize glutamine, and glutamine is a really hard thing to cut out of your diet.
That's in everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's actually him and his team developed ways to slowly and incrementally restrict the glutamine metabolization process with the mitochondria in safe ways that won't affect the body, the way that radiation and chemotherapy, those are so toxic to the body and so damaging to the rest of the cells. He's actually, and his team have figured out how to do this, but they can't get any funding. They can't get any recommendations because the system won't allow it, because they believe that the standard operating care is proven to be radiation and chemotherapy. So
it makes a lot of money.
Yeah. So they won't even take any experimentation with this particular process that they've figured out in labs with other, rats and mice and all this stuff. But the information is too damning to the whole medical process.
Absolutely.
That the only way to get it out is to talk about it like this.
Oh yeah. The whole system's fundamentally flawed from the base, because if you want to get a drug to market, let's say you want to help somebody, and you think your drug's going to work, you might be able to get some funding from a university to do a preliminary trial, and you might get some results. But then to move it to the next phase, you're going to need a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you're going to need people to invest in you that are going to think that this is going to return a huge return on investment, right? Huge profit, right? So who can do that? Pharmaceutical companies. Well, they're very invested.
And big food.
Oh, sure. I mean, you can really just say anyone with money, but anyone that thinks they're going to, turn a huge profit, right? But it's generally the, the pharmaceutical world that regulates that kind of thing. But no one's going to put their money into it. If you're a company and you're like, hey man, I already got this awesome treatment, awesome as in everybody's using it and it's making us shit tons of money, and you're like, hey, I want to do something different. You're like, absolutely not. Don't touch my golden egg. Absolutely not. No way. I will crush you. I'll do everything I can to crush
it's
you.
infuriating.
They have the money to do it.
Sister was going through treatment because my sister was also diagnosed with breast cancer. And when and this was not too long ago, a few years ago now, and when she was going through her treatment, I wish we had known what the degree of what I know to be true now then. My sister did go through a bit of a calorie restriction with her diet, which ultimately helped her. But when doing her chemotherapy, there was a treat cart that would roll into the chemotherapy room with chocolates and brownies and all sorts of different things.
Yeah, they have a really ass backwards. They're like, oh, hey, well, you're getting leaner. You need to put on some weight to be healthy. It's like, what? No.
Yeah.
God, no.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on where you're at, of course, if you're emaciated, okay, whatever, and you can't eat, then, you better eat something than just dying the next day. But those are extreme circumstances. Generally, people have enough body fat. They're doing okay. The last thing you need to do is, cram more, empty sugar down someone's throat with no vitamins and minerals in it, right?
Well, like you were saying about balance, I mean, you live a keto lifestyle, which is basically simulating a fasted state to the body.
As far as the uptick in autophagy and stuff like that.
Right. And whereas, like breakfast was the biggest lie of our lives, right?
You gotta have breakfast.
Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And of course,
bread's on the top of the food pyramid. It used to be, right?
It used
come
to
on.
be.
Bread tastes so fucking good though, man.
Oh, I know. I mean, that food
And that's
pyramid.
the pleasure, right?
We should have
That's
just
the pleasure.
replaced that bread with just a donut.
Well,
because that's what we're doing.
Thing, like, if you have too many carbs, it spikes your insulin levels and
creates an array of issues.
Exactly.
Inflammation.
Inflammation, everything. And
Calorie
if you're not having a good a good source of protein or vegetables or like fibers in there to slow down that process of your insulin spike, that's how diabetes happens.
Oh yeah, it's a big thing's caloric surplus, and the thing is with caloric surplus, good luck trying to get a caloric surplus eating vegetables and meat. Good luck. Good luck. I love to see someone try to get fat eating just like farm fresh meat, farm fresh vegetables. Good luck.
I mean, it's highly unlikely. You're absolutely right. But I mean, we do live in a society now where we're doing less and less and less and less.
Oh yeah, if you just sat on the floor and stare at the roof, maybe you could. I don't know, man.
But this is the thing, right?
I don't think anybody's done it,
I completely agree with you in terms of surplus because because my theory is just based on, thinking about how our population on Earth spiked, right? We utilized condensed energy. And that's what our mitochondria does to glucose. Glucose is or carbohydrates basically break down into a condensed energy source that creates a surplus in our bodies, creates a surplus of energy in our cells. And when you were sold a lie that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and you're eating toast in the morning and a sandwich at lunch, and then mashed potatoes and whatever
Gravy.
else at night, you are bogging your mitochondria down with a constant need to be in that oxidative phosphorylation process.
You start relying on it too.
It's not natural. So your body your body evolved to have times of feast, times of famine. Your body evolved to. I mean, you look at what broccoli used to look like. Broccoli used to have less carbs. It was small, it was spindly looking, and then now, I mean,
That's a good point.
And that's like that was a source of calories. Meat and this spindly looking little plant full of fiber.
Well, anything you need to condense or heat up to soften, right? It's going to be high in carbohydrates, or at least higher.
Yeah, and
right? Because it's condensed. It's dense.
Yeah. And still,
to it.
that's nothing compared to what anyone eats today, right?
Oh, no.
We're all companies are hijacking our primordial instincts, the instinct to seek calories, right? All of our pleasure systems, right? If you want to make money, what do? Give people what they want. Well, what do they want? They want what they evolved to want, but we're maladapted to this society because now we have things we never had before.
But people start relying on this overconsumption of calories, start relying on carbs and sugars. And I mean, yeah, you can start eating healthy again, but your body's going to go through all these withdrawals.
Those are the worst.
Sugar and carb withdrawal. And and it sucks.
It's an absolute thing.
More addictive than cocaine.
Exactly. Yeah. But then once you get through that, you will start feeling healthy. If you start eating healthier all the time and you get past all those withdrawals, you'll feel like $1 million.
I always say,
then you go back to having some, you treat yourself every once in a while. You overdo it, you're going to feel like shit.
Oh yeah.
Your body starts rejecting the sugar and everything, right? But it's a good thing when you eat like shit all the time, you're going to feel like shit. But if you start relying on that shitty food and relying on, the sugars, carbohydrates, and just all the shitty stuff, all the fillers, Well, then you're not going to be able to get used to eating good food, right?
Well, exactly. And when you date it back to, again, we're talking about decades and decades and decades, generations of people eating 3 meals a day. And this is why I always say I think the quickest way to teach somebody to control their food intake, especially men, is 1 meal a day. That's what I do. He knows this. So I eat 1 meal a day because I go to the gym usually 5 days a week on average. And the body is always processing everything I've eaten. I never feel like I'm bogged down. By the time I get to the evening, I'm ready to eat. Yeah. I've gone to the gym. Fasted every day. And so for me, I can usually eat whatever I want in my 1 meal a day because...
Yeah, good luck getting enough calories in that 1 meal to make you fat, right?
Exactly, right? Because it's so much easier. I mean, we can eat a box of cereal to ourselves. We can dummy a pizza, but you're never going to sit in front of a plate of vegetables and cook meat and sit there...
Dummy this broccoli.
Right? Like your body
this cauliflower didn't stand a chance.
Your body tells you when you're satiated.
Yeah.
When you're eating.
I don't think mine does. That's why I went on keto.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we've.
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
But I genuinely feel like most people haven't taught their bodies how to utilize fat as a fuel source because we have been bogging our systems down with glucose as a primary fuel source for so many generations now. And people often think that the human body is like this mystical thing, but in my opinion, and I maybe there's research out there that supports this, but I feel like most people in the process inside the womb, I genuinely feel like our bodies are learning how to unconsciously do things, right?
Oh, 100%.
Right? Learning how to pump blood.
Oh, buddy.
Learning how to
I got a whole speak on that.
Because and this is what I mean. Like our bodies have to learn how to do things. Same way a computer, when you boot up a computer for the first time, it's got to find all the pathways. It's got to send all the signals back and forth before it figures out how to operate, seamlessly.
I was actually going to go on this rant about epigenetics and passing it on to the next generation. But I was thinking that's a little bit too big of a rabbit hole for this one. Because I speculated many years ago, I was like, I think our bodies are more intelligent than we give it credit for. I don't think it's just just selective breeding that brought us to what we are today. Obviously, that's a huge factor of selective breeding, the survival of the fittest and all that stuff like that. But we just see too many animals that have been moved from one place to another, usually by humans. And the speed in which they adapted, like a lizard being moved. They're within 3 generations, their rear legs are longer, their tails are shorter, and these things. And scientists are baffled. They think that the animal went extinct until they did genetic testing on the what they thought was indigenous lizard species, and turns out no, the lizard is still there 3 generations later, and it's adapted rapidly.
Interesting.
And it kind of made me think, well, what if humans can make genetic alterations within a short period of time, perhaps within our own generation, and pass those on to our children? And then epigenetics came about, and it was like, yeah, it turns out we do alter our genetics from our behavior. Our environment, our bodies are more intelligent than just simply selecting. And then I was like, yeah, you know what? Maybe we pass that on. Like maybe what we do in our life to our body and those epigenetic changes we make, maybe we pass some of those on to your kids. And that's what kind of will make us evolve beyond just selection. And then it turns out, bam, that's true. Mm-hmm. Now we know we do pass on those epigenetics. And that has obviously negative and positive. Right?
Now, do epigenetics change as we age? So is that essentially like the code in the DNA that's being sort of passed on
through
this
changing by the aging process?
Well, I'm just trying to clarify what epigenetics is.
I guess, I mean, I'm not an expert on genesis, right? So to the best of my knowledge,
just the layman explanation.
So let's just say it's a set of genetics that are more malleable than what makes us a Homo sapien.
Okay.
Right. So let's say you work out, obviously. Now your kids may be more muscularly inclined than even you will.
Okay.
Because you'll make changes to your body. Your genes will actually slightly alter.
That's what I thought. That's what I was trying to find out.
Yeah, to your activity. And then your kid will be more predisposed to being more muscular than you are.
Right.
And potentially could snowball. Right.
Yeah.
But then it snowballs in the opposite effect. If you're slow and obese and you just lie around and you eat bonbons, and you actually get, unfortunately, epigenetic changes that make the children even more adapted to overconsumption and fat storage when obviously they already have the lifestyle.
Right.
Coco says she was off the couch.
Oh.
and this is why
CCTV.
No, sorry. Keep finishing that thought there.
Oh, I mean, that was basically it. I was actually going to go just a little quick thing about why I did start keto.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was just, I'm not trying to advocate too much to anybody because I think if you have a very calorically restricted, healthy, balanced diet, if you're a lean person, you eat good quality carbs, not your donuts and shit like this, and you restrict your lifestyle to like treats for those sort of things, I think you'll be a very healthy person, have a very healthy metabolic response and
mitochondria.
And
healthy mitochondria is everything.
You might be 90 before you develop cancer. If you stay lean, healthy. I mean, exercise plays a huge role in mitochondrial health and stuff like that. But for the keto, the big thing for me was I always felt like I was just starving all the time when I was eating carbs. I was just always starving, and I mean, I guess as I got older, a little bit less and less self-control. And I'd be like, oh, someone's like got all these sweet donuts. I always throw donuts because I love donuts.
Me too.
Yeah, they're like,
Me
hey,
too.
we got all these donuts. You want one? And like 10 years ago, I'll be like, nah, I'm hard as fuck. I'm not gonna eat that. And I keep this 6-pack. And then now I'm 39. I'm just like, yeah, I'll eat that donut. Fuck it. I've been married for 8 years. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do that. I still want to be really, really healthy, right? And the ketos just stops the cravings and it stops me. Now I see that donut, I'm like, I don't even want it. And I actually have better peace of mind. And in my work, I can be busy for 12 hours, running off my feet like a psycho. Now, if I am on a glucose diet, I'm now grumpy, I'm angry, I'm brain fog, I'm tired, I feel like absolute garbage. And then I start having a real hard time controlling my emotions with my customers, especially if they're being difficult. Yeah. But then when I went on a keto, after 12 hours of not eating, I don't feel any aggravation. I might feel hunger pangs, but I don't feel upset.
But they're not that nauseous hunger pang,
they're
right?
not.
They're just kind of like, oh, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
It's not that, I'm going to puke.
Yeah. And then like, I'm going to rip someone's head off, get some food. And my wife loves it because there's no more hangry Aaron. I come home after I only had a cup of coffee in the morning, no food for the whole day. I come home like, yeah, I'm starving. I'm going to cook some food. And Tiff's like, yeah, no worries. Great. Well, and we're just happy.
If I have a cheat day pain, what I eat, whatever craving I want to fulfill at that time, I got to be careful because depending on what you eat, it will affect your moods, right? Some days, like on Monday after, I just gorge on a couple burgers or, some heavy pasta or some stuff you don't need.
Delicious.
All this delicious goodness.
Yeah.
But the next day, like, I'll feel foggy and I'll be like, and somebody will just, simply say hi to you and you're like, what's this dude's problem? You're cranky.
Absolutely. It's a food hangover. And that's not even
who the hell is this guy, man?
Yeah. And I don't
He's
think
so
that's
chipper.
even as bad as the hangry. Like, I don't know about you, but I get like squirrely.
Yeah.
Like, I'll come home and if I'm hangry, like I haven't eaten all day because I've just been too busy. And my wife will be like, hey, how's your day? I'm like, sweetheart, I haven't eaten for 12 hours. Don't talk to me until I get food in my face. And she's like, okay.
I definitely have had moments. I've definitely had moments where I've had been hangry. But for the most part, I've never really been an emotional eater, I guess. But I've had friends who are very much that way. And since understanding how ketogenic dieting works and how carbohydrate metabolization works, they don't experience that anymore. Just like what you were saying.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to this whole concept of surplus that you were saying earlier as well, which I completely agree with. I think it's much easier to get into surplus through the consumption of carbohydrates.
Oh, way easier, yeah.
Right? I mean, it again comes down to that condensed energy, which if you don't, and this is why I only do the one meal a day, because I genuinely can tell around that time where I'm like, yeah, I'm hungry. I've gotten to that point where I've processed all the fuel from yesterday.
Yeah.
And it usually happens like clockwork around, if I have a high carbohydrate meal the night before, I will feel that hunger pang, like that nausea that comes from eating carbohydrates. But if I do a carbohydrate restricted diet, even in my one meal a day, the next day I don't feel it. I won't feel that, oh man, I'm so hungry.
Yeah.
Because it's your body. We've become addicted to glucose. The same way an alcoholic gets pains in their stomach when and the shakes. What happens to us when we don't get our glucose?
100%, yeah.
Right? We get sick feeling. We feel like we need to stuff our faces again. It's an addiction. We are seeking out, cravings of an addiction.
Yeah, biggest dopamine hit the brain gets, right? And what's an addiction, right? The substances give us, to varying degrees, dopamine hits. What's food do? Dopamine. I don't know about you, but the nights that I ate the most, like a Thanksgiving, something like that, I am the most hungry the next morning, which is, you think it's totally counterintuitive. You just ate a whole day's worth of food in one meal and you woke up starving like you're...
Woke up starving and punishing porcelain.
I'm sure everybody. I'm sure everybody is aware of the same feeling you're talking about. After a night of going drinking and then eating McDonald's.
Oh yeah.
Right. You go out. You get some late night
be punishing
McDonald's.
The porcelain after that too.
You get painting the bowl. You get some.
When am I not punishing the porcelain? Honestly, but anyway,
Jackson Pollock painting.
But the same thing
Picasso.
happens. I always found the night after a good club night and McDonald's, I would wake up feeling like I need to eat immediately. Why am I so hungry?
And you want to eat something greasy, you want to fill that.
It's that perpetual addiction that we're constantly trying to feed. Right?
You also got that fourth macro, alcohol, one that very few people know is a real thing.
Yeah. I've always stuck to my clear alcohols. Vodka.
Less of the sugar. Mess you up way less.
Oh man, if anybody's watching that needs advice, do not drink the colored alcohols.
But
the clearer the better.
Good.
Or do feel absolutely terrible and then decide maybe next time.
But don't complain to others why you feel so
don't
terrible.
Complain to me.
You made that choice. You know what you're getting into.
I remember when I was, I think 21 or 20. We all remember the alcohol that did it to us first. I think everybody can remember the alcohol that made them vomit their guts out first. And for me, it was Jack Daniels. Jack Daniels. I was 20 or 21. And after that, the smell of it brought that feeling back. Right?
I love Jack Daniels. But I rarely drink these days, but I love Jack Daniels.
Believe it or not, it was Bacardi White for me.
Okay.
And it sounds counterintuitive once again, but the reason being is I put it in Welch's grape juice and it tasted so good. So good. So I was a lightweight. I could drink like half a Mickey and be drunk. And I did 2.6. This stuff was delicious. So obviously I way overconsumed. It was the first time I ever blacked out, woke up at home, believe it or not. Like how did I get here? And I had a collection of like rocks and junk that apparently I picked up on the road on my way home. I was like, my pockets were full of like broken ensigns and shit. I'm like, what?
That's fantastic.
What was I doing? Yeah, my head hurt. My buddy's like, yeah, you kept telling me to punch you in the face because you couldn't feel your face. And I'm like, and you did?
Well,
He's like, well,
and you
lightly,
did?
but you were very persistent. Like,
for
okay.
me, for me, it was
hilarious.
Johnny Walker. But to be fair,
Johnny Walker, that's a thicker.
yeah,
Yeah.
But to be fair, I had a bunch of like creamy based alcoholic beverages earlier that night.
Delicious.
But to this day, I'm still not allowed in second slice pizza on Douglas Street.
Really?
Will they recognize you from that?
Oh yeah,
far?
just projectile vomiting right when I walk in the door.
No. I can't imagine getting
man.
like drunk on cream liqueurs or something like that. Like just, oh my
Yeah,
God.
that would be-
Speaking
Well, I
of
was
the
a young
glucose
guy.
calories,
Well, I was a young guy,
Yeah.
and I
It's a
discovered the
whole-
White Russian, and it was so
Ooh,
tasty.
delicious.
Yeah,
Oh.
no, so good, but it was
Yeah.
like
But you
terrible.
don't
for me.
want it coming
Yeah.
back up.
Yeah.
Those
No.
things you don't want coming back up. 'Cause as soon
generally
as
you don't want anything come back up.
No. Actually, you know what? I had a little trick in my party days when I got sort of in tune with this. This is back like just 10 years ago or so, less than that. I started figuring out like, well, if I don't process the booze in my stomach when I
Yeah.
go to sleep, then maybe I won't wake up so hungover. So if I was really drunk, I would go barf my guts
Yeah.
out before I went to sleep because I'm like, you know what? I got to get this out of me before.
Sound theory.
Stick a pen down your throat,
And I
get
would
it out
always
of you.
I would always wake up feeling, 9 times, 10 times better than
Oh,
I
yeah.
ever. Oh man,
Yeah.
best advice I ever gave
Yourself.
myself. Yeah, actually, I think I learned that from a good
Yeah.
buddy of mine, Mo. He used to always just disappear on a good night of drinking, and you'd look around. Where the heck did Mo go? And he'd be coming out of the bushes, wiping his mouth. Like, hey guys,
Yeah, the
Feel
puker.
better, let's go.
The pukers always did
Puke
better.
and rally.
Yeah, I'm not a puker, so it didn't work well for me.
I always avoided it.
Yeah.
Until I thought of this idea. I'm like,
Yeah.
I just didn't want any more terrible hangovers.
and that's how you became bulimic.
they say that's how it starts.
Yeah,
They say that's how
and
it
then
starts.
eventually just turned into keto, and now we're doing a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
But back to what we were talking about in regard to the corporations.
yeah, instead of drinking.
Yeah, instead of drinking. But no, I really feel like, trying to get this information about cancer being a metabolic disease is so important.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it accepted that now? Like, I mean,
No.
every time I pull up a podcast, I read a book, and it's
'cause
about
you're keto.
Well, yeah, I mean,
So the information that you're
yeah, I'm getting fed more, I suppose, a
Right.
little bit more alternative.
most
but-
people don't look into these things.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want to. We live in a body positive society where everybody's
Oh,
trying to.
Don't even get me started on that.
And again, it's a controversial subject that
Yeah.
I don't want any more hate for having logical opinions on controversial subjects. But the reality is we've got this body positivity message
Yeah.
that we're spreading, and who wins from body positivity? People don't win. They might think that their self-esteem goes up a little bit, but in reality,
No.
nobody's benefiting except for corporations and big food
Yeah,
from
100%.
body positivity.
Yeah,
Nobody.
Fake body positivity is it's a backlash. So psychologically speaking, it's been well studied. Obviously, I'm not a psychologist. Preface this. I have read a bazillion friggin' books on it. And my wife does have a psych degree, so we do discuss
cool.
this.
Well, we might have to have her on.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, she has 3 degrees and she's going to medical school next year.
Wow.
So. And
Jeez.
yeah, the thing with anything where you're actually lying to yourself, where you don't genuinely believe it. So like, let's say self-esteem, right? Or body positivity. You create these things naturally by actually being genuinely how happy with your accomplishments as a person. So your self-esteem comes from actually accomplishing the things where you set out a goal and you accomplished it, and you gain self-esteem naturally. Same thing with body positivity. You gain that naturally by making the choices that you know are best in line for you. But then pretending, be like, no, I just love myself regardless. No, I'm just going to force myself to have high self-esteem because, I deserve it. And like it backlashes, and it usually ends up in depression. And it's not healthy. Body positivity should be, let's treat our bodies better.
Yeah.
Let's care for our bodies more because you are a worth it person, and you're worth it to live a long, healthy life and to feel good. Right.
There's no place for fat shaming, right? There's no place for body shaming people. I mean,
no, and that's where those things get
education
inflated.
is the most important thing you can do, is educating people. And one thing that I've found the best way to educate people is to plant ideas in people's minds, right? Give them information that might inspire some degree of interest so that they go and find the answers for themselves. Because we all saw it during COVID, the moment people started talking about and telling people what was really happening in regard to the health information that was being suppressed, Nobody wanted to hear it when you were out there. Like, I was one of those people who was telling people what is now deemed factual information about COVID and about all the things that, I was one of the first people out talking about these things. And I tried to do it in a way that was sort of just asking questions rather than telling people this is fact, because the moment you start telling people, their backs are against the wall, right? And the same goes for
defensive when you tell them anything.
Well, because we live in a world now where we are being convinced that by living out of, or we should be okay with living out of balance, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, we're trying to justify living out of balance. And one of the most important things that I tell my son, he's been in a relationship with his girlfriend for over 6 years now, and he's 21 years old, and they have a great relationship. It blows me away when I see them, the way that they interact with each other. It's like they just have such a respect for each other.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And one of the most important things I've ever said to him was, the world has become a blender, and when you step out of the safety of your home and family and loved ones, we step into this blender every day, and it chops us up, and it makes us feel like, it changes our opinions. It changes the way we see things, and it tries to teach us to justify certain behaviors. You get friends that start learning a certain ideology and way, and they start telling you
We're pack animals.
Right? And so then we come home, and all of a sudden we've got this new perspective, or a slightly adjusted perspective, which now has to interact with our partner. Right? And that slightly adjusted daily interaction can, over time, turn into something really terrible. And one of the things I try to teach him, and just trying to make, help him understand, is that when you start to feel society pulling on you, and what does it pull on you with? Pleasure, right? Porn, sex, drugs, partying, food, everything starts to try to pull you out of alignment. And, it goes back to religious ideology and beliefs of, Bible and sin and all that kind of stuff. And, I don't want to get into religion, but really it all just is about balance and finding that balance. I mean, balance is
balance is everything.
Everything. It affects everything. If you stand a certain way for too long, over time, you're going to affect your entire body just from leaning in one direction for too long. Yeah. Right?
It's like sitting. And
now
I've been leaning here for the past hour.
But everything is revolves around pleasure in our society. So when you start to feel like you are having too much pleasure in any regard, it's probably affecting you in a negative way.
Oh, 100%. If you're seeking that much pleasure, that means you're lacking contentment with your life generally, and everything has backlashes. It's like those people you meet that are like, seem ultra happy. They're not ultra happy.
No, the ones who post all the time how happy they are.
Oh yeah,
like you don't know what's going on behind the curtain.
Yeah, and that's also
like
sure some are happy.
Yeah.
Some are happy, but
but I mean that's been studied too. The people that post the most about their life being good are the least happy.
Tend to be
generally, and they do the same thing with relationships and it's
just like comedians. They put on that happy face and make everybody laugh, but they're the comedians are known to be very depressed.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same concept. You're showing everybody the best part of
best version of yourself.
Best version of yourself.
Well, I think
there's nothing wrong with
I try
being
to
the best
show
version
you
of
my
yourself.
the worst version of myself, just to make sure.
Yeah.
I think comedians
just keeping it real.
I think
I can
comedians
tell this guy's a real piece of shit when he comes in for haircuts.
Yeah.
I think comedians tend to be highly intellectual. I think in order to actually find humor in things, you have to be highly intellectual. And I think highly intellectual people, even Nikola Tesla specifically says that highly intellectual people tend to be the loneliest. He said
was Tesla funny?
No, but highly intellectual people,
he didn't,
right?
He didn't look funny. Like when I looked at him,
he
he's
did.
tall, skinny.
He was pretty
I heard
funny
he cut off his
Funny
testicles. I don't know.
No.
Yeah, apparently.
Really? I've never heard that.
I don't know if it's true. Don't quote me on this. I watched a documentary on him about all his inventions, and they said allegedly that he cut off his testicles so he wouldn't pursue women, so that he wasn't distracted from his pursuit of science.
He did die a virgin.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yes, he died a virgin. That's right. Yes, he did.
How
did
do you
die
do
a
all
virgin.
those great things and still pursue women?
Well, again, I think he was also sort of ostracized in the scientific community. So
every forward thinker is.
Cut off
it probably didn't help him not having any kind of relevance in his field.
Yeah,
and
that's
being
why I'm
virtually
ostracized.
bankrupt, right?
I'm just a revolutionary, super intelligent.
But yes, comedians tended to be
Yeah.
highly intelligent, and I think realistically, when you look at the suicides in celebrity, it tends to be the people who were the most successful that choose to take their life. Like choose. There's lots of people who in Hollywood who die from accidental overdoses because they throw caution to the wind and they just say,
of
screw
course.
it.
Yeah,
but people like, you know,
that chef
Robin Williams,
recently? Oh,
the
God,
chef,
that breaks my
Anthony
Bourdain.
Bourdain.
Yeah,
Anthony Bourdain. He had the
Um,
best job in the world. Get to travel the world, eat awesome food, learn culture, and get paid to do it.
Yeah.
And
Like
then
that just proves right there that depression is a real thing.
Yeah, because you got another one, Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
Chris Cornell was a highly intellectual. I mean, he was a poet, one of the most, you know, maybe underrated poets in my opinion of our generation. And it tends to be the people who can see the world for really what it truly is.
Yeah.
Who tend to say, okay, I'm checking out now.
Oh yeah. I mean, you need a purpose. You need something to get you out of bed every morning. And when you see through, it's like, you know, I hate to use this, the matrix, right? So it's like people live in, I consider it like a matrix. It's where you believe that an ad is telling the truth. The government's telling the truth. They don't see the world for what it is. They don't see the mechanics that move everything, that shape everything. And I'm not saying me or us like just, you know, see everything or some fucking genius. But it's like when you wake up to the reality of like what turns the wheels of society and you see the heights of society and the darkness of society, and you have a tendency to, you know, you think about that stuff, you can go down a dark hole. And then, you know, you're rich and famous and you have all the things in the world. You've kind of accomplished everything in a lot of respects. And if you're sitting there dwelling on the way the world works and you don't have that drive to get up and do something because you've already become, you know, one of the greatest chefs in the world. You've really maxed out everything. You don't have a serious reason to get out of bed every morning and you see the world for what it is. That's brutal.
Absolutely. Hopelessness. That's right. I mean, like that's again, back to what
a
people
really
were
bad
thinking during
spot to be.
COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And-
my wife and my future kid, that gets me out of bed every morning. Like, you know, my job's all right, but you know what? I love my job because my job is going to pay for a good life for them.
Yeah.
You know, and that is my huge purpose. I see the world the way it is. I mean, my vision of the world, let's say, the way I see the world without a serious purpose, I could get really depressed. But I'm an extremely happy person because I have so much purpose.
Oh, and ketogenic diet actually helps
With depression, yeah.
With depression,
so
as
is
well.
cold plunging. So I do cold plunging
Oh,
too.
okay,
Yeah,
cool, good
yeah,
for
yeah.
you. I've been meaning to look more into that.
Yeah.
Definitely takes some courage that maybe I haven't mustered.
Keto's the same way, man.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, taking away those things you want, it takes grit. to
I've
be
done
like,
keto.
you know,
I did keto for on and off for a few years before I got into the intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Again, I found that keto for me was harder to sustain because I do like having you know, carbs. I do like eating treats. and
Yeah,
that kind
ain't
of stuff.
nothing wrong with
And one
what
meal
you
a
do
day
is
allows
great.
me to do that. And but
Yeah.
here's the reality of what I do diet wise. Sure, I can maintain a lean body. I can control my weight really quite easily. But theoretically, based on what I'm reading about, again, Thomas Seyfried's research, is I may still actually be allowing myself to develop cancer because I'm feeding myself high volumes of carbs on a regular basis. I mean,
like once a day kind of thing.
yeah, once a day I eat basically whatever I want. And you know, for me, if I start to put a pound or two on, you know, over the course of a week, I'll realize, okay, I've got to dial it back for 2 or 3 days. So I will. I'll dial it just to a healthy meal with maybe some potatoes or rice in that one meal. Yeah. And then I'll immediately see the body start to balance itself back out. I mean, I'm hoping that the intermittent fasting and the, you know, the 1 meal a day process is allowing my body to actually keep efficient mitochondria. I think it probably is.
Absolutely. I mean, you exercise too, right?
Yeah. So you're
obviously.
speeding up the process of which, or you're needing and requiring more fuel, right? So I think that keeps the mitochondria more efficient as well. But I mean, the benefits of keto and I think probably, I'm not sure if keto has the same benefits in regulating testosterone as fasting does. It could be wrong. But from what the data suggests and shows is that in a more regular fasted state, your body's natural testosterone levels will stay balanced. You won't go through this regular depletion over the course of our lives. Again, it has to do with bogging down the mitochondria with too much fuel and metabolization throughout your day. And if you can reduce that process at which the mitochondria has to work, the amount of work that it has to do, you'll be in more regular states of autophagy where the body and cells clean all the crap that surplus we were talking about earlier creates.
Yeah, and that's like the balance, right? So
Yeah.
you just came back to that, right? It's all about balance. So if your body is an amazing thing, it can handle metabolic damage, right? Like when we work out, there's metabolic damage, but then there is, oxidative stress. There is, mitochondrial damage and this and that, cellular damage, things like that. But your body is amazing at healing when it's in a balanced state. Right, it's amazing at combating something like cancer when it's in a balanced state, right? So when it's metabolically out of whack, and obesity, right? It doesn't even have to be obesity per se, because everyone has a different idea what that is.
It'd be like sleep deprivation.
Oh
too,
man,
right?
huge sleep deprivation. Oh yeah, you want to mess yourself up faster than anything in the world? Yeah, major sleep deprivation.
I'm really good at that on the weekends.
I noticed. Yeah, I've been shitting on you about that for like 20 years, buddy. Yeah,
Well, and back to him with the keto. When you were telling me about your mother's health issues, I genuinely feel like if she were to switch to a ketogenic diet, she would turn a lot of that around.
Yeah.
Because it's been proven to reverse diabetes. It's been proven to slow the neurodegenerative degeneration of cells within the brain.
Oh yeah, the brain. Yeah, the
right?
ketones are very protective of the brain cells. Yeah,
increase the function and the cognitive function of the brain. They've been researching keto applied to epilepsy for decades. I mean, the turn of the 20th century, they were doing
Absolutely.
it.
Like, I don't know a lot. To be honest, like you guys are talking shit. I'm sorry, talking a lot about keto here and everything, and I don't know enough about it to really have an opinion if it would be good for my mom or not. But what I do know is, for her to like really change her diet, it's her having to really change a lot of habits she's developed her whole life. Being 70 years old, I think that's the biggest struggle is having to change those habits, because you're used to, she got used to eating a certain way over her life. Like now it's gotten to the point where she's diabetic, right? Yeah. That's why I'm a huge like advocate about like trying to like staying fit, working out, whether you go lift weights, do yoga, go kickboxing, go for a jog every couple days or whatever, man. If we start doing that at a younger age, as we get older, it's going to help prolong our life even more. The same thing goes for what you put in your body. And I'm guilty of it. At one point in my life, I was just eating whatever the hell I wanted. I didn't care. I come home on the way home. Oh yeah, let's go to the drive-thru again. Wendy's or McDonald's. Oh, let's do both.
Yeah, easier to do when you're young, right?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Well, you also bodybuild, right? So you're bulking. You're always trying to get bigger.
I'm not necessarily bulking. I'm trying to put on more lean muscle tissue. But like if I was bulking, I'd be eating a lot more. That's for sure.
But what I mean is like for me, I weigh 165 pounds on a heavy day. I'm never trying to get to a big size. You're a big guy. Your body requires a lot of fuel to maintain that muscle, right? So it's going to increase your cravings. All that muscle, especially in a modern diet like we eat today, you're so used to consuming the things that you do that your body's become adapted to it. And because you work out, you're probably fine, right? Realistically, you're probably fine. But what I was trying to say about keto, because I don't even necessarily, I wouldn't say I'm a keto advocate. I think keto is great. I think it's great as a treatment for things.
Yeah, treatment, yeah.
I don't necessarily think, especially in our society today, it's a practical thing to expect the general population to be able to do.
Believe it or not, I'm not a keto advocate either. I say what it does for me and why I do it, but I don't go around telling people they should do it. I say you need some balance in your life, and whatever brings you to metabolic health, that's what you should do. Yeah. So, if keto's the way, then keto's the way. Like I'm half of why I do keto is just my profession. Yeah. Just, not eating for long periods of time, and also the mental acuity. So I cannot eat the whole day. I can be really tired. The mental acuity for me is a lot more than when I was on a glucose diet. So, I'd say it has its benefits. It has some factors that are superior. Like I can sit there and grind out numbers and paperwork all day long.
Brain's firing.
And my brain, after 2.5 hours on a glucose diet, I am foggy, and there's nothing that's going to bring it back. However, a quick nap sometimes can do it, but I can't nap at work. I have to keep going.
Why not, man? Just close the door.
Yeah.
Learn to
you know?
sleep standing.
Exactly.
Yeah. But on the keto diet, my brain will keep going, and I can keep crunching those numbers out, and I can keep making minimal errors, right?
Yeah.
And seeing them, and I don't get all, and I don't get messed up after my meals. I don't get that postprandial dip you get after your meals. I experimented with that for a long time because I get so foggy after whatever meal I ate, even like quote unquote healthy stuff. I'd be like, man, what is it? I'd be moving my macros around, taking out a little potatoes, put a little more broccoli, take out a little bit of meat, change it up. Like, how could I not feel like crap after I eat? I always felt like crap after I ate. But you know what? It's whatever brings you to metabolic health, do that. Whatever's going to get you into that caloric balance where you're eating basically what your body needs. That's you. That's what you should be doing.
But I'll be honest, I do eat a lot of snacks. I do eat a lot of treats.
Yeah.
And after my meal, I probably consume, if I consume around 3,500 calories in my window of eating, which is usually around 2 to 3 hours each night.
Yeah.
I will probably slowly over the course. If I did that 3 days in a row, I'd probably put on a couple of pounds, and I'd notice it in the mirror, and I thought, time to turn it back.
Make
and
an
then
adjustment.
immediately make the quick adjustment and eat 3 healthy meals in a day, or in back to back, and boom, my body just leans right back out. I feel healthy again. I feel that balance, sort of regaining that balance again.
Yeah.
But again, I genuinely feel like the fastest way to learn how to control your eating habits is by eating 1 meal a day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, with that could be amazing for a lot of people. I think at least, so I used to do diet programming. I used to be a personal trainer, and I used to do diet programming a long time ago. And I found this was so long ago. It's almost 20. Yeah. I started that like 20 years ago. And, most people at the time were making massive diet shifts. It was like change everything today, and no one stuck with it. And I had a different approach, which was kind of like, basically shit on, right? Where I was like, hey, let's do a food log, and then let's make one adjustment. So it's like, okay, so you eat this much Pepsi and this and that, or drink, I should say. Let's cut the Pepsi back a bit. Let's you'd add 2 donuts, let's have 1, and make slow adjustments and changing lifestyle. And I'd be quite honest with my clients. I'm like, hey man, I'm here to change your lifestyle. I'm not here to crash diet you into a competition. I'm not here to crash diet you so you can get in that wedding dress. If that's what you want, I'm not your guy. Like, no worries. If that's what you want, that's cool. That's somebody else. There's other guys who'll do that. I'm here to change your life. And that's what I did. And most people didn't like that. And I turned away 90% of the people that came to me. Because I'm like, no, man, I'm not doing you a diet program for the weekend. Like, not a chance. I want to see you become a better person and a happier person, and this is what I'm gonna do. And then now it's become more commonly accepted that small incremental changes, like the cold plunge, start with water that's just like slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then like next time,
discipline.
1 degree colder, 1 degree colder. And eventually you're going in ice water and it hurts like a mother. And you're like, yeah, this is fine. But if you could do that at first, you're like, oh my God, and you jump out, right?
Yeah. It's discipline. Everything in our world is about having that discipline to be able to make the sound choice. Right?
Yeah. Or make it just a tiny choice, right? A big choice is hard.
Yeah. When I
Tiny
first started researching keto, I think I mentioned this earlier in the evening. I initially cut out rice.
Yeah.
Oh no, bread first.
Bread.
And then after a few weeks, I decided, let's go and cut out rice.
Yeah.
And for the first time in my life, I started to see abs. I'm like, whoa, this is actually working.
Took out a huge amount of calories, probably just
Probably, yeah,
the bread,
yeah. But what ended up happening over the course of 6 months to a year is it just became too hard to sustain. I was in a relationship at the time, and it was you're going out for dinner, you're going out for dates, you're doing all these things, and it becomes really hard to nix all the carbs in your day-to-day life like that. And then eventually, I went through a breakup, and that led into screw it, I'm just gonna go balls to the wall with this keto diet. And I ended up getting so lean because I did 6 months straight, basically no carbohydrates.
Breakups can be great for your health.
Right? Yes.
At least physically.
I got so lean. And it was, but again, it was too hard to sustain because as soon as I was introduced those carbs back into my diet, for cheat meals, it was like, oh my God, all week long, it's all I thought about.
Yeah.
Was that cheat
like
meal.
crack.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just thought that's not sustainable.
And you feel like you want to chew your arm off 24/7.
yeah, that's not a sustainable
Yeah, I
lifestyle.
literally feel like I want to eat my hand right now.
Yeah.
Like my hand's looking delicious. Like,
and I'll be
I
honest,
can't be in that state all the time.
for me, with the one meal a day, I wake up, I don't think about food until like 3 or 4, when it actually starts to kind of feel like, okay, yeah, you're done processing your energy now. You need more energy. And at that point, that's when your body starts going into the state of autophagy. That's when your ketones start to elevate, because your body is, it's no longer got any fuel. So it has to start being self-sufficient. And your mitochondria starts working more efficiently. And if you do that repeatedly, I find, for me, it's such a sustainable lifestyle.
Yeah, that's the metabolic flexibility that we've lost, right? When you were saying how people are just constantly eating carbs. My brother, actually, great dude, obviously, because he's my brother. And he came to me the other day and he said, you know what, Aaron, it's like, I figured out, like, I don't have to be full all the time. It's like, it's okay not to be full. And I was like, yeah, because I complimented him, like, man, he's lost a whole bunch of weight. Now, since he's out of high school and he's not playing sports anymore, he's been slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger body fat, right? And less healthy, right? Obviously, because your BMI is going up like that, your health is declining. And then he's just taking a huge jump backwards where he's substantially leaner, probably lost half the body fat. And it's all just because he said to himself, like, I don't have to always feel full. He's like, it's okay for me to be doing my job and feel hungry. Like, that's fine. Well, and that's the metabolic flexibility. You're not supposed to be stuffed all the time.
And you're telling me, you're saying he used to do a lot of sports and when he was in high school and everything, consistently active. That could be part of the reason why he felt like he needed to be like full all the time, because he felt like he needed to feed the beast, if you will, right?
100%.
But the snowball of that addiction had been probably rolling since he was a child.
Yeah.
Right?
How many athletes have you ever seen? Like, I've seen a ton of athletes, being an athlete myself, that get huge when they stop sports because they're used to just cramming tons of calories down their face because
their body, they're using up all the energy they need.
They're playing football. I mean, you and I we did MMA long time ago now.
Long time ago, yeah.
And those dudes, all of us shredded. Everyone had an 8-pack, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of those guys now got big bellies because they were burning so many calories and they needed so much food. And then what happened when they stopped doing MMA because their bodies are beaten up now? Well, their diet didn't change.
I remember 18 years old, doing kickboxing 6 days a week, lifting weights.
You were
4 days
so
a week.
lean when I met you.
I was insanely.
Were you 17?
Yeah.
Oh,
I was insanely lean, and I could eat like a extra large cheese pizza and go on a fucking 12K jog, no problem. Like half an hour later, it's like, let's do it. It's my body metabolized it.
Yeah.
I really miss those days.
Yeah.
Well, my
our lifestyles changed so much.
My stepdad, who is here, Ron, he has switched to one meal a day. How long has it been now, Ron? 4 months.
Wow,
He's been doing it
that's
for
awesome.
4 months. And how much weight are you down? 40 pounds.
Wow. Congrats.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And how old are you, Ron? 65. 66.
Wow.
So at 66 years old, he switched to one meal a day and he's lost 40 pounds in 4 months. I have another
amazing.
friend.
I love that.
Yeah, I have another friend who switched to one meal a day. Ashaholic, what's up? He has been, I think he's down close to 30 pounds and he's been doing it for a few months now. And again, I posted this on my social media, on my Instagram, just talking about in my stories, not a video, just a written post about how much easier it is to control your diet when you are set on one meal a day in the
Yes.
evenings.
Yeah.
You don't,
that discipline that you create for the one meal a day
requires discipline.
That's why the keto works for me because I have now I have that set mindset of that discipline, but I don't eat the sugars. So then what is all the confection foods that have super high calories? They're all sugar-based food. Of course they have fat in them too and maybe a little bit of protein, but like Smarties. Well, what's all that? It's 90% sugar. Like, I'm making up that percentage,
sugar, man.
But yeah, all the confection
Tastes
foods
great.
are sugar. So because I'm not doing that, I say, no, I can't do that. I'm on keto. And if I do that, the consequences are even greater than maybe in the future, my abs look softer. You know what I mean? That's kind of like an elusive thing that over time that just it gets worse where you get more and more body fat. It's an immediate result. It's like, no, if I eat that, I'm not going to be in ketosis. My brain is not going to work that well today. I'm going to have problems getting my work done. And I need to get my work done because if I don't make money because I work on commission. And if I don't make a lot of money, my wife, who's finishing her 3rd degree, and who's got a baby on the way, like I'm not going to be able to support her adequately, and that is my number one goal in life. So that kind of level of discipline is like I got a gun in my head all the time.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, I ain't having that Smarties. I got a gun in my head that says you're not having no Smarties.
Yeah.
And I did that on purpose. I created that on purpose because that's the kind of discipline I need right now in my life.
Yeah, no, for me, again, same thing. If I don't have that discipline, then it can affect me in other ways, right? When you learn to just make simple choices that, are better for you, and food is that one that you can control on a regular basis. And as soon as you start to control your food, which is the fuel for life, all of a sudden it starts making other positive choices that much more likely in your life.
100%. It's a snowball
reaction.
effect. Good equals more good. Yeah. The positivity rolls into more positivity. Yeah. I've it's been a long time since I've seen it, but, I'm drawing a blank on who the person was, but I've seen a whole person's life completely change, where they started with a little bit of gym work. So a little bit of working out, and then from working out to a little bit of dieting, and that snowball to like, man, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling stronger. I'm feeling healthier. Their energy starts improving. Their mental focus starts improving. And they start gaining some confidence. They start looking better. They see themselves in the mirror like, oh, I look good. And it snowballed to the point where that guy got a new job. He started making more money. He started taking way more care of his body. He has a way nicer girlfriend. The girlfriend he had was abusive in my opinion, because he was just settling because he felt like a garbage person, and now he feels amazing. And he's like, you know what? No, I'm amazing. I need someone who's going to treat me as well as I'm going to treat them. And his girlfriend now, sweetheart. His whole life transformed. It just started with making a few healthy choices.
Well, dieting alone starts giving you structure, and you start snowballing that to everything else in your life, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, don't pay attention to what you put in your body. You're going to feel like shit. And then you're going to surround yourself with people that feel that way too.
Yeah.
And also, like, be in relationships, you get used to that toxicity, and it's like at one point, it's like, it's all you'll know, right? So everything kind of intertwines with each other.
Yeah. It's
like,
all connected.
If you treat yourself like that, you treat yourself like crap, you're going to feel like shit. And then people around, you're going to be surrounded with people that treat you that way too.
Yeah, well, exactly. We got to wrap it up because you got to be out of here by 8, and it's after 8 now. So so that's cool. We got a good. I think this went really well. I think we got some really good, information out there.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
Yeah, it has been. I just want to reiterate that Thomas Seyfried is the doctor that I'm going to put in the description and find a way to put the information out there, even on the screen, edit some stuff in, but. Other than that, I guess we should probably just close it out, and we'll do it again in a week. And it was a real pleasure. I really appreciate you filling in. I hope that we can do it again. I'd love to get your wife in with her. That would be a really interesting.
That might
podcast.
Be a mouthful and a head full of it.
I would love to. I think the dynamics between you two, I think, would be really informative for others, because you seem to have a pretty solid understanding of just balance in general, and a wife who's as educated as she is. I'd love to have her on.
Yeah, I just want to live a happy, healthy life, and she wants to take that even further. So
cool.
We mesh well.
All right.
And I'm not a doctor, just enthusiast.
Yes. We're, none of us are
we're all just
medical
enthusiasts.
professionals. We're all just.
I don't think anybody would believe me if I said I was a doctor. So
we're
safe there.
I don't know. I've met some pretty dumb doctors.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
But other than that, okay, we can probably just give it a wrap.
Yeah.